Hey everybody, my name's Jeremy, and if you stumbled upon my YouTube channel, Independence, Real Truth, I wanted to give you a summary of who I am and what led me on this journey to decide to shed light on really disturbing things that I've come to find out and to know about how society is structured, how society is controlled, and how this is highly detrimental to the human race. So, without further ado, again, my name's Jeremy. Welcome to the Independence channel, Real Truth.
Are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Just to give you a background of who I am, I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm 36 years old, and I joined the military at the age of 20, served for 9 years in the United States Marine Corps. I fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I served honorably. I was discharged, and I proceeded to go to school where I got my degree in exercise physiology. I had this interest in overall physical health because my father had passed away at an early age. There was substance abuse. There were other unhealthy habits. There was a lot of destructive behavior. And when he passed away at the young age of 37, I decided at the age of 17 that I was going to invest my life in ensuring that not only did I stay in good health, but that I could teach other people as well. Going through college, studying epidemiology, studying the medical field, working with doctors, being a published researcher, which I am in the American Journal of Exercise Physiology in December of 2019. And I am starting a master's program soon, where I would like to continue my quest for knowledge, which I have this thirst for, and to, broaden my marketability in the future. I really want to be able to do a lot of different things. I've worked as a personal trainer. I've worked as an exercise physiology or body composition consultant. I've acted as a research assistant, and I would like to do clinical work as well. So I want to be balanced because I believe in balance. Balance is a foundational principle that I have and that I carry with me professionally and personally. And it wasn't always like that. I myself had served for 9 years. Life was good from 2004 when I joined the military all the way up through college. And I'm watching, just so many changes happen. And I was happy to be a part of it. I'm not afraid to admit that I voted for Obama in 2008. But I feel like I am an independent thinker. I've always been independent. And I always tried to use my head. I was an athlete, but I was a poet. I did a lot of different things, and I kind of suppressed some of the things that I really wanted to do, a lot of ideas that I had growing up, because I felt like I had to conform. And I didn't really understand why I felt like I needed to conform. But this happens, and this happens to a lot of people. Now, after my military service, after college, I am working. I'm doing these things, and we have the 2016 election. I had no interest for voting for Donald Trump. I couldn't. I always thought of the guy as just out of touch with everyday society. You know, he's a very wealthy person. Good on you. The guy's successful. You know, a lot of people talk badly about how he went bankrupt. I'll tell you, he uses the same tax loopholes that everybody else does, and you know, it's not his call to bulldoze somebody's home down. We should look at the legislators. Anyway, I digress. I notice how the Republican Party during the Republican National Convention forced Donald Trump to sign a contract stating that he would not run as an independent voter. And that was the beginning for me. They hadn't taken Donald Trump seriously until that moment, nor had I. I didn't really think he had a chance. It was at that moment that I realized that something was wrong. That didn't seem right, because I feel like if another person wants to come into the mix, we are bringing more voices and more courage for people to bring their independent voice into the mix, because Donald Trump wasn't a Republican. He was more of a Democrat than anything. And everybody knew this, that knew what they were talking about. And this is when I started to realize, why are these politicians trying to deny that this person run? What is it about this? And then you start doing research and realize that they were going to attempt, they being Ted Cruz, was going to attempt to steal super PAC votes from Donald Trump. This is very similar to what Hillary Clinton did in the Democratic National Convention. I don't want to hold a bias, but the Democrats did the same thing. The Republicans were going to, and Donald Trump was very popular. He became very popular very quickly because other folks saw that there was some kind of unfair treatment going on. The mainstream media started to attack this guy when he was one of their own. He was a darling on NBC or whatever channel his show was on. I never watched a single episode. I couldn't stand the guy. But I saw how they being the media, were creating a narrative with no evidence. And this was something that Andrew Breitbart and some other people who were labeled racist by association or an innuendo by the mainstream media, specifically Max Blumenthal, who I will have my way with on this channel eventually. These people were baselessly calling others racist without evidence, and you were therefore guilty until you could prove yourself innocent. And this was 10 years ago, during the grassroots conservative movement. We are seeing the same exact thing play out today. Andrew Breitbart died at a very early age of 43. After he went to war with the Democratic National Convention, specifically Anthony Weiner, Uma Abedin, the Obama administration with ACORN, and NAACP. And maybe I'll provide information. I'd love to shed light, actually, and do an episode about that. So I see this. Not everybody sees it. Not everybody's going to agree with what I'm saying right now, and that's okay. By no means am I trying to impede on your ego. I never would like to be abrasive. I welcome everybody to agree or disagree. But what I started to see in the 2016 election, once the presidential election happened, was just a complete exponential upturn of the intensity of the racist rhetoric, the bigot rhetoric, the fascist, the Nazi rhetoric, the nationalist, the populist rhetoric. And I just thought that things weren't right with that. And as I started to listen to these politicians, they're talking back and forth. One's blaming one for wanting to give tax cuts to the rich, and therefore they're for the big banks. And the other, when in reality, that person wants to implement $52 trillion over 10 years for universal health care, or is talking about it. And that comes at a high cost plus interest that the banks profit from. Okay, so I started to see a lot of discrepancies. Like, why do people not see this? Like, why are people not like getting this? People are ignorant to how our financial system and the economics work in our country and globally, because we are a global community at this point. And we have been for some time. And it impedes on our Constitution, in my opinion, as well as every other constitution of other countries around the world. So I couldn't understand some of these terms that these politicians were throwing out there as if they knew what the heck they were talking about.
Force big banks to have to lend to small businesses. They're guaranteed the loan. We bailed them out before, forced them to lend. But what did they do? Do you have a credit card with us? Have you established credit with us? Do you have a bank account with us? The list goes on. And they're denied. The result? Billions of dollars in COVID relief programs for small businesses benefit ones who had lawyers and accountants to help them better connect to businesses, jumped to the head of the line, and the big banks accommodate.
I'm starting to believe that most do not. I wanted to learn about the central banking system. I wanted in. I wanted to start investing. I wanted to see what it was about the money. I wanted to see what it was about Trump's skyrocket economy that he had planned. I wanted to know about all of these things. And so I started to learn about the central banking system. And that was the beginning of the end of me being propagandized and manipulated and brainwashed. I was zombified. I was a zombie. Meaning, information was given to me and I perceived it through the five senses. My brain processed the information that entered my mental, processes it, and gives it to me as my consciousness, and therefore that's how I perceive reality, through the five senses. That's how we process, that's how we get information. And what I started to learn over time is that the media was using this information war, if you will. It really is an information war, and giving false information.
Sondland, do hereby swear and affirm as follows. I want you to look at point number 2, bullet point number 2, second sentence. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmak on September 1st, 2019 in connection with Vice President Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. Now, this is his clarification. Let me read it one more time. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmak on September 1st, 2019 in connection with Vice President Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. We got 6 people having 4 conversations in one sentence, and you just told me this is where you got your clear understanding. Which, I mean, even though you had 3 opportunities with President Zelensky for him to tell you, you know what? We're going to do these investigations to get the aid. Didn't tell you 3 different times. Never makes an announcement, never tweets about it, never does a CNN interview. Ambassador, you weren't on the call, were you? You didn't listen on President Trump's call and President Zelensky's call?
I did not.
You've never talked with Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
I never did.
You never met the president?
That's correct.
You had 3 meetings again with Zelensky and it didn't come up.
And 2 of those they had never heard about, as far as I know.
And President
There was no reason for it to come
President
up.
Zelensky never made an announcement.
Explosive testimony from Trump's top diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, behind closed doors for 10 hours. And if you read just his 15-page prepared opening statement, you know that Trump offered a quid pro quo, period.
But it just happened to be that was the assignment I got. I got all the good ones. So I got Ukraine. And
Full stop. End of story, according to Taylor. This opening statement itself is thorough. It is detailed. In fact, for Taylor to read these 15 pages, it took over an hour. Taylor telling lawmakers that President Trump used the powers of his office to push Ukraine to investigate Biden and the 2016 election, and a debunked conspiracy theory linked to that.
And I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
Now, at the time, I didn't realize, what the structure was about. Like who pulled the strings. I had no idea. But all I know is the central banking system, the Federal Reserve, and the U.S. Treasury, along with public legislation and public policy, was criminal in so many ways, in that the reserve is actually not a reserve because there are no reserves to be had. There's no money in the account. So in order for us to pay for our way of life under the Federal Reserve as of 1913, you have to go in debt in order to live. And that comes at a cost of interest. And this is where the banks come in. Now, it's one thing to have debt plus interest. Okay, let's pay it off and let's move forward. Let's invest in things that improve my ability to make a living and invest in my future and my children's future, and then pay income taxes to invest in the future of my country, which is extremely important to me. So I start to see all these mechanisms that the banks were using, like fractional reserve lending, and how much money a person has really doesn't mean anything if you don't do anything with it. You can't just sit it in the bank. It loses wealth. It devalues. We talk about the Romans cutting away the edges of their coins to devalue their currency. The same thing happens in America. This is the fall of civilizations. This is what they do. They devalue the wealth of your country. And they do so in many ways, and that's what this channel is all about. And so I learned about that, and then you start to learn that once you have a certain amount of power and cultural influence, you have a responsibility to something else. Meaning, your money has to be used. People want your money. They want to use it to invest. You have to put your money into real estate. You put your money into different things. Some people put their money into weapons handling or weapons dealings, illegal weapons dealings. Some people put their money into illegal drug trafficking. I'm not talking about domestic drug dealers. I'm talking about how the drugs get into our country anyway. And that will be on this channel as well. Our intelligence agency, the one you know of, the main one, the first one that comes to mind, doesn't even work for the United States of America. You think they do. It's a facade. The Federal Reserve, the debt, a form of slavery. As soon as I learned about the Federal Reserve, one of the first things I thought about were my black friends, because I realized just how bad the Federal Reserve is for human beings in general, and the inequity that it creates when you're allowed to create more leverage, more wealth, while devaluing the currency and leaving the middle class and the lower class and the uneducated or the ignorant unaware and out to dry. And if it's happening, I'm thinking to myself, dude, this is happening to everybody. And then something hit me. African Americans this entire time have been screaming about inequality, and here it has sat right in front of me, and I'm being brutalized. It's brutality. What's happening? I'm being brutalized. I'm being manipulated. I am being herded into indebted servitude, basically. And it was even worse for African Americans. And I thought of a couple of friends of mine that I served with and that I went to school with, and I realized how terribly bad our system is. And I proceed to learn about finances. I proceed to learn about investing. I want to know where money goes. I want to know what inflation is, deflation. I want to know what fractional reserve lending is. I want to know everything. I want to know how public policy turns into money, what it's used for, where it goes. And in doing so, you start to learn. All of these things in life start to connect. You just start to realize everything around you is different. Everything, I see things differently, completely differently. I start to see, going back to the media, by this time, Trump is under investigation, and it's known that or it's thought that he was a Russian asset while Russia, colluding with Russia while Russia interfered in our elections by posting ads on Facebook. And it turns out that it's Facebook that's complicit in running their Cantillon effect to commodify your time to make money while you invest your time for free. And in the meantime, they beam their ads and they manipulate your emotions. I'm getting ahead of myself, but it turns out what I was starting to see during this investigation, Dan Bongino comes out after John Solomon from the Hill comes out and talks about this elaborate scheme to cover up political espionage that the FBI, NSA, and CIA had conducted under the direction of one Barack Obama. And that it was massively covered up. This is where I started to see through the propaganda. It was massively covered up by the mainstream media, specifically the liberal media complex. I'm not picking on liberals. You've been infiltrated. If you are a liberal or a progressive, the people that you represent or that represent you and that you support have been infiltrated by people who don't have the same agenda that you think they have. They pander to your virtues, and in the meantime, they subvert your consciousness by using the media. What I was seeing was an impeachment inquiry. I'm reading a Mueller report. I read the Mueller report 3 times. You know how many pages that is? I read the IG reports, the Horowitz reports. I take notes. I studied these things inside and out. I learned in detail about these people. I investigated what I was hearing, and I came to the conclusion that, well, many conclusions, and I'd love to get into that in an episode. Many conclusions. I would watch the impeachment inquiry through Congress. I watched Congress manipulate the rules, literally change the rules. They held the veto power to allow and not allow certain questions. They held the veto power as a majority in Congress to veto any witness that the Republicans wanted, and they did so. They didn't allow people to testify. They didn't allow the Republicans to ask questions. And then when it went to the Senate, they accused the Senate of doing that which they themselves did. In the meantime, the media is going to completely report a different story than what I just watched daily. When I say I watch daily, a friend asked me recently, Jeremy, how much time do you spend researching daily? And I've got to say, I spend about 10 hours a day. And when I'm not doing that, I've got a stack of medical journals. I'm out and about recording for my fitness platform, my fitness business that I have and that I'm building. But I spend this time. I'm not married. I do not have kids. Although I would like that one day. Right now, I'm trying to be the best me I can be. And maybe one day. But this is my duty to my country. This is my duty to just our way of life. It's my duty to human beings, black and white and everybody. And the more people I can reach by seeing what I'm seeing, and once you start to see it, you cannot go back. You cannot go back. You start this quest for consciousness, for this righteousness, and you find light in darkness, and you seek more knowledge. And I literally had a spiritual epiphany last October. It's been about a year, almost a year, where I fell to my knees because I had this epiphany about eternal consciousness. I was looking at all of these things differently, and I saw the world differently, and it was beautiful. I didn't feel any anxiety, no pain, no anything. I felt euphoric. I felt connected and one with God, and I saw God without seeing a face. And it was an awakening like no other. And once you start to see this, everything, you become in touch with everything. All of the propaganda goes away. You don't think about it. You sit actually on my knees and I cried, and it was incredible. I was happy. I immediately was euphoric, and then I started to immediately reflect on my past and all of the things that all of the behavior that I had, all at the mercy of the environment around me. I'm not going to play a victim. I made my own decisions. I chose not to look prior, and now here we are today, and better late than never, because in this journey, I managed to, find God. And it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or believe in nothing, because even if you believe in nothing, nothing is something. If you really would like to define nothing. But doesn't matter how religious you think you are or aren't. It's about being at one with yourself. And when these people have manipulated air frequencies, radio frequencies, television frequencies that you take into your mind through your five senses, they control your emotions. They know which part of your brain is going to respond. They know how you behave. They can predict your behavior if they control your emotions. The central banking system has a variable in their business models, all of these central banks, and the variable is human emotion. And that blew me away when I saw that. So here we are. I've decided to take it upon myself to shed light on such entities as the Federal Reserve, our intelligence agencies, our United States government, our politicians, and how they are using the media under the guise or subverting U.S. law. The Smith-Mundt Act of 1946, which I have written behind me, which is supposed to protect the free press from manipulation or infiltration by our intelligence agencies to propagandize Americans. It's illegal. They're allowed to promote propaganda abroad, to give people abroad a certain perspective on America. And in 2012, the Obama administration and legislation rescinded the Smith-Mundt Act and gave more power to those in control of our government. So, I'm going to be exposing these things. I want to talk about it. I want people to see that a regular person has gone through such a transformation, such a, and it's been a hard road. Once you come to grips with reality, you cannot live like you once did, because you understand what all of this control, the propaganda, the manipulation, the mind control, the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the porn. George Floyd was in porn, and he was a very dangerous person. And unfortunately, people were negligent, and bad things happen. And this is just the state of our country. It happens every day. And the media is going to use it to create a perception of what's happening. You have athletes that are literally brainwashed. And I think some of them are probably compromised. The more money you make, the more compromised you are. And that's what I've learned over this time. One of the many things that I've learned. When you make enough money, if you want to continue to, you have to become a part of the cabal. And you are the subconscious mouthpiece in the cultural realm. And you may not even know it. So there's my journey. That's my story. And I'm going to stick to it. So welcome to my YouTube channel, Independence. You can like, dislike, leave comments. That's fine with me. I'm anticipating it. I've lost many friends. I've been ridiculed, righteous indignation that Andrew Breitbart talks about. I've gone through it. Many others have as well. And this is the time to live within the self and eliminate the things around us to see the truth which exists within all of us. But they hide it from you using manipulation. They keep you from using your intuition, your proprioception, your interoception, your other senses. They ridicule them so that you do not use them. They label you a conspiracy theorist. This is ridicule. This is righteous indignation. Go put your tinfoil hat on and go watch an Alex Jones episode, right? So enjoy my episodes. Leave some comments. Subscribe if you want to. I always like to see that I'm reaching people. If I've got 100 subscribers and I reach one person, I have done my job. That is a win for me, because that one person may reach one more other person. And that's important. We need to become conscious. We need to become conscious of the self, because we are not conscious of ourselves, and therefore we have to live in these illusions and anxieties and fears, and our fears are being preyed upon now. So, Semper Fidelis, always faithful. God bless, and enjoy.